Okay, so I'm sorry. I laugh because I'm about to say that in this video I will I will talk about nothing. I'm sorry. Maybe someday people will understand why the Buddha is represented as laughing, because yeah, so let's be serious. I will talk about nothing, pure nothing. I said to myself a few weeks ago that I would publish the videos that I want to publish, even if there are embarrassing moments, out of honesty. And yeah, so I will promote 2 channels. You can find others who learn to an English-speaking audience how to speak German, because I think that in order to understand the Wissenschaft der Logik, one has to understand at least some basic words about Germans, like Dasein, Aufhebung, Bestimmung, Bestimmtheit, and there are many others. But there are some words which are simply better able to express ideas, concepts, determinations in German. And that's why I promote these channels. So you can find a link in the description. And if I had to praise God, I don't really know what God is completely, but I think that God tried his best, and we live in an age where a lot of people, not all of them, but a lot, have an access to the internet, and there is a lot of knowledge being produced on the internet. You can learn a lot of things on the internet, for instance, the German language, and that is an opportunity for those who have the leisure, the time, the desire. So yeah. So paragraph 87, die Enzyklopädie der philosophischen Wissenschaften. I read in German and then I comment and I translate. So there is a playlist, Wissenschaft der Logik, on this channel. I've just made a video about pure being, das reine Sein, and now the logical, although strictly speaking there is no logic yet, but logic is in the process of establishing itself, I guess. So we started with pure being, and now we go into, that's a way of talking, nothing. So dieses reine Sein ist nun die reine Abstraktion, damit das absolut Negative, welches gleichfalls unmittelbar genommen das Nichts ist. So this pure being, which I talked about in the previous video, is the pure abstraction. And abstraction, the etymology says it's to draw away, to draw off, to detach, to separate, to abstract. Abstract thinking is detachment from sensuous ordinary consciousness and elevation into the realm of thought. What is abstract is difficult to grasp because it requires an effort, attention, focus. But here, before commenting the passage, I will comment a sentence by Whitehead in his Introduction to Mathematics, or maybe the history of science, I don't know. He says that the more, in a history of mathematics, the more abstract mathematics became, the more mathematicians elevated themselves into the realm of pure mathematical abstraction, the wider the range of applicable utility was gained by mathematics. So the more intensity in the realm of abstraction you elevate yourself, the wider the extension of the applications and the uses of mathematics. Intensity, extension are two moments of the concept of quantum. We are not yet in the realm of quantity here, but that's an illustration. So abstraction, I've asked myself this question: why do we bother with abstraction? What is the purpose of philosophy? Why should we waste our time, energy, resources to try to think about pure abstractions? But because what is concrete is abstract. What people call concrete is an abstraction and can only be grasped properly by thinking about abstractions first. So yeah. So this pure being is the pure abstraction, namely the absolute negative, which at the same time, taken immediately, is nothing. So pure being, das reine Sein, is pure abstraction, but abstraction etymologically means to draw away, but pure being doesn't draw anything away from anything else, because there is nothing else. There's nothing. So it's only, chronologically, it's only Hegel and Parmenides, and here now myself, abstracting, trying to do from every representation, every mediated thought, and to elevate myself in the realm of pure abstraction. So to abstract from ordinary consciousness, determinate being, determinate thoughts, and to elevate oneself into pure abstraction. And this is pure being. But pure being is negative in the sense that there is nothing. No intuition, no perception, no determination, no sensation, no images, nothing. It's pure Bestimmungslosigkeit, absence of determinacy and determination. And this immediacy, taken for itself, is das Nichts. It's pure nothing. Pure being is pure nothing. Being is nothing. Es folgte hieraus die zweite Definition des Absoluten, dass es das Nichts ist. So here follows the second definition of the Absolute, namely that the Absolute is nothing, nothingness, emptiness, the void. That's what the Buddhists know. Das Ding-an-sich, das Unbestimmte, schlechthin Form und damit Inhaltslose ist, oder auch, dass Gott nur das höchste Wesen und sonst weiter nichts ist. So the Ding-an-sich, that's another expression that must be spoken of in German. The English translation would be the thing in itself. That's a concept expressed mostly by Kant. Kant, I will try to talk about Kantian philosophy in 45 seconds. Kant says we cannot know what the thing in itself is. We can only know the phenomena, what appears. We can, through the process of der Verstand, which is the understanding, which are the categorical thinking, we can know the determination of the phenomena, but what is behind the phenomena, what projects the phenomena, what he calls das Ding-an-sich, the thing in itself, that we cannot know. We cannot know real reality, only appearances. I simplify to the utmost. And of course, it's much more complex, much more subtle, but yeah. So das Ding-an-sich, that Kant says we cannot know this Ding-an-sich. But Hegel says, if you know that you cannot know, you already know something about the Ding-an-sich, that it is unknowable. So you contradict yourself by saying das Ding-an-sich cannot be known, because by saying this you are already predicating determinations and producing knowledge about das Ding-an-sich. So this Ding-an-sich, das Unbestimmte, the undetermined, it's the absence of form and content. Form und damit inhaltslose ist, has no form, no content. Or another way of saying this, that God, is only das höchste Wesen, the highest essence, or the supreme being. And therefore is nothing, because the supreme being is not any determinate, any finite, any limited being, it's pure being, but pure being is nothing. That's why Robespierre, during the French Revolution, wanted to establish the cult of l'être suprême, the supreme being. But if he had thought philosophically, he would have said that the cult of the supreme being is the cult of the supreme nothing. Because there is nothing in the supreme being, no determination, etc., etc. Das Nichts, das die Buddhisten zum Prinzip von allem wie zum letzten Endzweck und Ziel von allem machen, ist dieselbe Abstraktion. The nothing, the nothingness, that the Buddhists take as a principle and as the end goal and purpose of all things is the same abstraction. The Buddhists say everything comes from nothing, everything returns into nothing. Yeah. Okay. Wenn der Gegensatz in dieser Unmittelbarkeit als Sein und Nichts ausgedrückt ist, so scheint es als zu auffallend, dass er nichtig sei, als dass man nicht versuchen sollte, das Sein zu fixieren und es gegen den Übergang zu bewahren. When the opposition in this immediacy is expressed as being a nothing, it seems too... the expression is shocking, that this opposition might be nothing, so that there might be no difference between being and nothing, so that we should not have tried to fix being and to prevent being from passing into something, den Übergang. Yeah, so to say that being is nothing is problematic because being doesn't seem to be nothing. Being seems to be, whereas nothing seems not to be. So, yeah. I wrote, the problem for philosophy is to set a difference in being and nothing, to differentiate being from nothing. And the question that I wrote is, what can prevent being from being nothing? Why would being not be nothing? That's a good question. Das Nachdenken muss in dieser Hinsicht darauf verfallen, für das Sein eine feste Bestimmung aufzusuchen, durch welche es von dem Nichts unterschieden wäre. So, here my German is limited, but in German there are two words, Nachdenken, which literally means thinking after, and there is Reflexion, which is derived from Latin, and Nachdenken and Reflexion are kind of synonymous. Nachdenken would be afterthought, but let us translate it by reflection. So reflection, Nachdenken, has to find and hold firm a determination, eine feste Bestimmung, through which being would be different from nothing. This is the role, the duty, maybe, of thought to find a determination that might differentiate being from nothing. Because in the absence of any determination, they are identical. Man nimmt es zum Beispiel als das in allem Wechsel beharrende, die unendlich bestimmbare Materie, oder auch ohne Nachdenken als irgendeine einzelne Existenz, das nächstbeste sinnliche oder geistige. So Hegel says, we take this, for instance, as what remains persistent, stable, throughout all changes. For instance, the infinitely determinable matter. Matter would be eternal because it can be infinitely shaped, formed, structured, whatever. Or without any Nachdenken, reflection, as any singular existence, sensuous or spiritual. What Hegel means here says that if I say being and nothing are identical, being is nothing, I can say, but this book is, it is not nothing. But here Hegel said would be, yeah, but this book is not pure being. This book is Dasein, etwas. It has a quality, Bestimmung, Bestimmtheit. It has a quantity, a measure, an identity. It's a substance, it has a cause, accidents, it's a thing, it has properties, etc., etc. So it's not pure being, it's a determinate, finite, endlich Dasein, being, determinate being. So, aber alle solche weiteren und konkreteren Bestimmungen lassen das Sein nicht mehr als das reine Sein, wie es hier im Anfang unmittelbar ist. So, any further, more concrete determination doesn't let Sein, being, as it is in pure being, as it is in the immediate beginning, because precisely any Dasein, any determinate being is not pure being. Dasein ist nicht Sein. Dasein ist nicht Sein. Okay, here we are entering the realm of German speculative subtleties, because that's why I want you to learn German, because I will explain. Dasein, it's really worth explaining. Dasein ist nicht Sein. Sein is pure being. So Dasein, which literally means being there is not being. In German it's Dasein ist nicht Sein. But in the following development, we're not still there yet. I will comment Dasein later. But Dasein, Hegel says, is opposed to Anderssein, which is the Nichtsein of Dasein, the non-being of Dasein. But they are opposed, but at the same time they are one, because Dasein is determined being, but it has a Bestimmtheit, a limit, eventually, because it is the non-being of Dasein, the Nichtsein of Dasein, which gives Dasein its limit. So, Dasein ist nicht Nichtsein. In one word, Nichtsein is the opposite, so to speak, the opposite of Dasein. So, Dasein ist nicht Nichtsein, it is Dasein, but at the same time, Dasein ist Nichtsein, because it has its being in its other, which is Nichtsein. So, to make things intelligible, Dasein ist nicht Sein, Dasein is not being, because it is Dasein, so it's not pure being, it's Dasein. But one could also say Dasein ist Nichtsein in one word that comes later in the logical development. And now you understand the German mind. Only the Greeks and the Germans in the entire history of philosophy have had such subtleties, complexities, and yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Nur in und dieser reinen Unbestimmtheit willen ist es nichts. It is only because of this indeterminacy, for the sake of this indeterminacy, that pure being is nothing. Ein Unsagbares. What is unspeakable cannot be expressed. And here we are entering the realm of the Chinese mind, the Eastern Oriental mind, because in Eastern, mostly Chinese philosophy, they constantly talk about the subtlety, the unspeakable, the unexpressible, that which cannot be expressed, the Unsagbares. I'm sure there is Chinese expressions which would perfectly be translatable in German as Unsagbares. The Chinese talk about the supreme principle probably as Unsagbares. But the Germans, precisely, are not satisfied with Unsagbares, the unspeakable. They want to speak this Unsagbares. Sein Unterschied von dem Nichts ist eine bloße Meinung. The difference of being, pure being, from pure nothing, the difference from being and nothing, is eine bloße Meinung. And here, the German language must be used because Meinen, was meinst du, means what do you think, what do you have in mind? And the translation here is what is aimed at. What Meinen probably is related to mean. What do you mean? Was meinst du means what do you think, what do you mean? The meaning can also be the aim. So yeah, that's difficult. So the difference between pure being and pure nothing is nothing, cannot be thought or expressed, but there is no difference, but at the same time there is a tendency, I don't know what word to use. There is they are identical, but there is a yes, but yeah. Maybe I will improve in the future, but as of now, I am like the Chinese. I cannot speak the unspeakable. Es ist gerade nur das Bewusstsein über diese Anfänge zu tun, nämlich, dass sie nichts als diese leere Abstraktionen sind und jede von beiden so leer ist als die andere. So, the consciousness must become aware that in these beginnings, pure being, pure nothing, these beginnings, like there are two beginnings, but actually there's only one beginning. The beginning is nothing but this pure, empty abstraction, and each being a nothing is as empty as the other. Both are one, and both are as empty as the other. Der Trieb in dem Sein oder in beiden not Joe Biden. Okay, I'm going insane. I must become Okay. The tendency to find eine feste Bedeutung zu finden ist diese Notwendigkeit selbst, welche das Sein und Nichts weiterführt und ihnen eine wahre, konkrete Bedeutung gibt. So, der Trieb. Here, one has to learn the German language again. It can be translated as the impulse, the tendency, the urge, the will, the impulse, the desire in a way, but these are words which are improper. But the word German is Trieb, so there is being and nothing are identical, but there is a tendency, an urge, an impulse, a will to find a determination that might differentiate them and drives them forward and further, and to find a true and concrete Bedeutung, namely a true and concrete meaning. And concrete for Hegel means a unity of opposite determination. And this impulse, this urge, this will, der Trieb, is what Hegel calls necessity itself. Notwendigkeit. That's why logic is necessary. Dieses Fortgehen, this going forward, ist die logische Ausführung und der im Folgenden sich darstellende Verlauf. So this progress forward is the logical development itself and the course of thoughts which exposes itself in what follows is the logical development. So what is the origin of logic? What is the root cause of logic? Why is there logic? Every scientist acknowledges that there is logic and rationality. But where does logic and rationality come from? In the view of Hegel, it comes from this urge, impulse, tendency to find a determination that might differentiate being from nothing, because in the beginning they are identical. So here we have the logical root, so to speak, of logic itself, and of being, and of God. I will illustrate this later. Das Nachdenken. Nachdenken means afterthought, literally, but more reflection. Das Nachdenken, welches tiefere Bestimmungen für sie findet, ist das logische Denken, durch welches sich solche nur nicht auf eine zufällige, sondern notwendige Weise hervorbringen. So, the reflection which finds more profound determinations is the logical thought through which she or the logical thought finds not contingent but in a necessary fashion brings forth determination. That's how being determines itself, and logic gives itself its own content, its own laws, its own rationality, and that's how God becomes. Jede folgende Bedeutung, die sie erhalten, ist darum nur als eine nähere Bestimmung und wahrere Definition des Absoluten anzusehen. So, every further determination which is found within being and within nothing, but within their identity and their process of self-differentiation, every further determination is a closer and more true definition of the absolute. It is to be considered as such. Because such determinations which follow in the logical course is no more of an empty abstraction like being and nothing, but it's rather a concrete, ein concretes, namely a unity of differentiated and distinguished and distinct determination, in which both being and nothing are moments. And Hegel shows that every following and every subsequent logical category contains, in a way, the moments of being and nothing. Die höchste Form des Nichts für sich wäre die Freiheit. The highest form of nothing, taken for itself, would be freedom, liberty. To liberate oneself is to extract oneself out of a state of non-freedom. To be free means to be free to say yes, but also to say no. To self-determine. Will is freedom. To be free means to assert one's own will and not someone else's will. So that's the ambiguity of nothing and negativity, in the sense that it is the condition of freedom. Without nothing, das Nichts, there would be no freedom, I guess. Aber sie ist die Negativität, insofern sie sich zur höchsten Intensität in sich vertieft und selbst, und zwar absolute Affirmation ist. But this nothing, which might be freedom, is negativity, which to the highest intensity of its in-depth going is affirmation. So to negate is to assert, in a way. When you say yes to something, you say no to something else. When you say no to something, you say yes to your own freedom, in a way. So this is the question of choice. To choose is to negate. So, yeah. I wrote this impulse, urge, drive, will, desire, tendency, whatever, is maybe what in religion people call creation. And Hegel will talk about this later, but to create means to bring forth something out of nothing. There is the process of transforming something and creating something else. The sculptor or the painter transforms a block of marble into a statue, or an empty painting with no colors into a painting, an empty I don't know how you call this in English, a blank paper into a painting. So he negates, he transforms in order to create. But God's creation, the God, white man, imagine, had nothing to transform in the beginning, because there was nothing. So it's a creation out of nothing. That's a possibility to envision. How did things come into being? There has to be something coming out of nothing. And I will seek some books to illustrate this attempt of minds to understand why there is something, or there seems to be something, and yeah, I will just pick up some books and yeah. A Universe Out of Nothing, from Lawrence Krauss. Why there is something rather than nothing. So this is an atheistic, empirical, physical, rationalistic attempt to explain why there is something rather than nothing. And the basic idea is that the primordial void, the quantum void, was, in this view, virtually charged with particles. So there is a virtual fluctuation within nothing. And so even modern scientists who are empiricists, rationalists, physicists, atheists, whatever, they try to answer in the realm of cosmology metaphysical questions. A universe from nothing. Yeah. And then I will talk about Jacob Böhm. He says in Mysterium Magnum, the eternal free will has introduced itself into darkness, pain and source, and so also through the darkness into the fire and light, even into a kingdom of joy, in order that the nothing might be known in the something. So there was nothing, in this view, except the eternal free will. That would be what Hegel calls der Trieb, the impulse, the tendency, the will, to extract something out of nothing. And but here we are within the most important and most difficult questions. Does God himself know how he came into being? I don't know. Böhm refers to magic as that which makes within itself, where there is nothing, which makes something out of nothing. So God, in this definition, would be a magician. God would be magical in the sense that he, although we cannot yet speak of a he, but this will made something out of nothing. And I will quote extracts from the book Cosmotheism by William Pierce. He says, in the view of George Bernard Shaw, man's purpose to be the service of the life force in its eternal quest to know itself. So a way of representing this unity of being and nothing, and the will, for lack of a better word, to find a difference between them, might be the quest of nothing or being to know itself. And in order for knowledge to appear, there has to be determinations and consciousness eventually. And yeah. In the universe, there is the internal urge toward the one purpose. That's a way of expressing what Hegel says. Through the urge came the ordering of the non-living, the highest ordered becoming living, and the urge continued the ordering of the living to the higher levels of consciousness. The urge is toward higher consciousness. So at the very beginning, there is just the urge, the will, the tendency, the virtuality, the potentiality, the impulse, whatever. There is no consciousness, there is no self yet, but there is a tendency, and eventually, according to Hegel, this primordial will wants to know what is being, or what is nothing, or what is. The progress of creation is the process of developing the self-consciousness of the whole. Its way has progressed from blindness to foresight, from unguided groping to the threshold of directed progress. His view is that institutions should manifest the urge ever towards the urge towards the one purpose, talks about the knowledge that leads to the conscious understanding of the one purpose. I wrote on commentary that God, at this moment in the logical process, cannot really be thought of as God yet. That might be the will of the abyss, poetic expression, the will of the primordial nothingness. And this will is the logical necessity, the logical rationality. And in a way, it might be the creator. It's the self-determination of the absolute, or that abstract is being and nothing, both are abstract, and a concrete thought is the unity of both moments. I also wrote about Shakespeare and Hamlet, to be or not to be. Well, being and nothing are identical. So, to be and not to be are the same, but they are nonetheless different. So, I guess that the answer to this famous question by Hamlet is dialectics, maybe. Yeah. And let us think if I had to imagine what the entity that we call God is, I can only imagine a primordial void, a primordial emptiness, a primordial nothing, and that which we call God in the beginning was, this is inappropriate representation, but the self-extraction of itself out of nothing. There was nothing, and nothing wanted to become. And in this view, one cannot have anything but admiration and respect for this entity. Because the Bible, for instance, starts with the creation of the world. God said, let there be light, whatever. But the question is, who created the creator? The creator, in the religious view of the Bible, the creator created the world, and humans, and the Garden of Eden, and the earth, etc., etc., the earth, the sea, the animals, day and light, etc., etc. But who created the creator? How can one be self-created? These are the kind of thoughts which I can only express myself in terms of feeling. There's a feeling of strangeness and admiration and wonder, but also a kind of a sadness. I don't know. It's I don't know. Yeah. Okay, I comment the Zusatz. Sein und Nichts sollen nur erst unterschieden sein. Der Unterschied derselben ist nur erst an sich, aber ist noch nicht gesetzt. So being and nothing have to at first have to be differentiated. The difference of themselves is at first only in itself, an sich, aber it is not yet set, gesetzt, posited. Wenn wir überhaupt von einem Unterschied sprechen, so haben wir hiermit zwei. When in general we talk about a difference, we have now two. Because in a difference there is the first moment and its difference, the other, deren jedem eine Bestimmung zukommt, die sich in dem anderen nicht findet. So when two things are differentiated, there is a determination in one which is not found in the other. And that's why difference, Unterschied, is a moment in the sphere of essence, not in the sphere of being, because when you have Dasein, the other of Dasein is Nichtsein, but here I anticipate the following logical development, is that there is not any single determination that one finds in Dasein which would not be also in Nichtsein, the Anderssein of Dasein, because the Nichtsein of Dasein, das Anderssein, is itself a Dasein. So Dasein is not Anderssein, but Anderssein is the Dasein in relation to the Dasein, so the Dasein is the Anders of the Anderssein. It's the other of the other. So that's why Dasein and Nichtsein eventually become one. That's later in the development the infinite and für sich sein, because although they are determined and limited, they are not yet differentiated as in the realm of essence, because there is not a single determination in Dasein that would not also be in Nichtsein. Nun aber ist das Sein eben nur das schlechthin Bestimmungslose. So, being is the absence of determination. And this absence of determination, dieselbe Bestimmungslosigkeit, ist auch das Nichts. So this absence of determination that we find in being is the same determination, or rather lack thereof, rather lack of determination. And that's the ambiguity, because to say that being and nothing are Bestimmungslosigkeit, the absence of determination, is to determine them in relation to what is determined. So, yeah. So, nichts, so nothing, is precisely this absence of determination. Der Unterschied dieser beiden ist somit nur ein gemeinter, der ganz abstrakte Unterschied, der zugleich kein Unterschied ist. So, the difference of these both entity, but that's not the proper word, the difference between being and nothing is only aimed at, it's only thought about, it's only potential, virtual, it's not there, it's not present there. And present in German would be Dasein. Dasein is a being which is there, being there, presence. So that's why there is no Dasein yet in pure being. And that's why Dasein eventually must come out of pure being and pure nothing. Bei allem sonstigen Unterscheiden haben wir immer auch ein Gemeinsames, welches die Unterschiedenen unter sich befasst. When we speak of any differences, we always have something in common which grasp within itself both the differentiated. For instance, when we talk about the genera in biology, genus, genera, or the species, but genera, the generas, the genus, plural of genus, it's a Latin word, genera. Both are differentiated, or both species are differentiated, but what they have in common is that two different species are species, two different genera are genera. Two different human races are races. So there is identity in difference. And Hegel says, ebenso sagen wir, es gibt natürliche und geistige Wesen. There are natural and spiritual essences. There is a natural and a spiritual essence. So a natural essence, a natural being and a spiritual being are different. One is natural, the other is spiritual, but they have in common the fact of being Wesen, which would be essence or being. So that's the common determination. Beim Sein und Nichts dagegen ist der Unterschied in seiner Bodenlosigkeit, und eben darum ist er keiner, denn beide Bestimmungen sind dieselbe Bodenlosigkeit. Bodenlosigkeit literally is the absence of a soil, a ground, fixed structure. the determination of the difference between being and nothing is the absence of ground, the absence of, yeah. Wollte man etwa sagen, Sein und Nichts seien doch beide Gedanken und der Gedanke somit das beiden gemeinschaftliche, so würde dabei übersehen, dass das Sein nicht ein besonderer, bestimmter Gedanke, sondern vielmehr der noch ganz unbestimmte und eben um des Willen von nicht zu unterscheidende Gedanke ist. So if we said that pure being and pure nothing are both thoughts, and that what they have in common is that both are thoughts, the thought of pure being and the thought of pure nothing, but he says that these are particular determined thoughts, and the undetermined thoughts of pure nothing cannot be differentiated from pure thought. So here that's really complicated, but das Sein stellt man sich dann auch wohl vor als den absoluten Reichtum und das Nichts dagegen als die absolute Armut. So we represent ourselves as being the absolute wealth of determinations, content, representation, whatever, and nothing as being absolute poverty, lack of representation, lack of ideas, lack of content, whatever. So we can have the definition of God as the simple being, in that God is full of all sorts of realities. But there's also the definition of the Buddhist, which says that God is nothing. And the consequence of this is that in order to become God, man has to negate himself and to become nothing eventually. Yeah. So that's the idea that the whole or everything is actually nothing, that self-annihilation is the path towards godhood. And this is the kind of idea that we find in Eastern spirituality. But the proof is that we find them in Western thought as well. But because West and East are determinations, and eventually they are contained in pure being and pure nothing, they are subsequent determinations, which are geographical determinations. And here there is no geography, there is no earth, there is no space. But yeah, but in the ordinary consciousness, these kind of ideas that nothing is everything, everything is nothing, these are the kind of ideas that we find in Eastern spirituality. And I will conclude by seeking another book to illustrate these ideas. Conversation with God by Neil Walsh. And here what God says about nothing and everything. That's the view which has been made popular in the mainstream consciousness. In the beginning, that which is all there was, and there was nothing else. Yet all that is could not know itself, because all that is all there was, and there was nothing else. And so all that is was not, for in the absence of something else, all that is not. This is the great is, not is, to which mystics have referred from the beginning of time. Now all that is new, it was all there was, but this was not enough, for it could only know its utter magnificence conceptually, not experientially. Yet the experience of itself is that for which it longed, for it wanted to know what it felt like to be so magnificent. Still, this was impossible because the very term magnificent is a relative term. All that is could not know what it felt like to be magnificent unless that which is not showed up. In the absence of that which is not, that which is not. That's Hegel's logic, speculative logic, made intelligible for the broad masses. And that's not very intelligible because if I wanted to criticize the God of Neil Walsh, I would say, your God is pretty smart, but he should take a lecture on speculative logic, maybe. Who am I to reproach God, to make accusation against God? I didn't mean this, it was just a joke, I guess. The one thing that all that is knew is that there was nothing else, and so it could and would never know itself from a reference point outside of itself. Such a point did not exist, only one reference point existed, and that was the single place within, the is not is, the am not am. That's dialectics. Still, the all of everything chose to know itself experientially. This energy, this pure, unseen, unheard, unobserved, and therefore unknown by anyone else energy, chose to experience itself as the utter magnificence it was. In order to do this, it realized it would have to use a reference point within. It reasoned, quite correctly, that any portion of itself would necessarily have to be less than the whole, and that if it thus simply divided itself into portions, each portion being less than the whole could look back on the rest of itself and see magnificence. And so, all that is divided itself, becoming, in one glorious moment, that which is this and that which is that. For the first time, this and that existed quite apart from each other, and still both existed simultaneously, as did all that was neither. Thus, three elements suddenly existed, that which is here, that which is there, and that which is neither here nor there, but which must exist for here and there to exist. If I had to translate this into Hegelian language, I would say, here and there are not spatial determinations. Not yet. These are, I think, logical. So, here and there would be Dasein and Nichtsein, which is the Anderssein of Dasein. And that which is neither Dasein nor Nichtsein is Bestimmtheit, which is determinacy, and later in the logical process, determination, and eventually limit, Grenze. And the Bestimmtheit is that which must exist in order for Dasein and Nichtsein or Anderssein to exist in the language of the God of Neil Walsh. So this is how the God of Neil Walsh represents himself, I guess. But if we translate into logical terms, we have Dasein, Bestimmtheit, Anderssein, Nichtsein, and eventually we have etwas, etwas anders, so the Anderssein of etwas, we have determination, limit, etc., etc. It is the nothing which holds the everything. It is the non-space which holds the space. It is the all which holds the part. I continue. I'm going to go further. Now, this nothing, which holds the everything, is what some people call God. Yet that is not accurate either, for it suggests that there is something God is not, namely everything that is not nothing, but I am all things, seen and unseen. So this description of me as the great unseen, the no thing, or the space between, an essentially Eastern mystical definition of God, that's what I said earlier, is no more accurate than the essentially Western practical description of God as all that is seen. In logical language, der Inbegriff Gott ist in the language of German metaphysics, Gott ist der Inbegriff aller Realitäten. The concept which includes within itself all realities. That's a metaphysical definition of God. Now, in creating that which is here and that which is there, God made it possible for God to know itself. In the moment of this great explosion from within, God created relativity, the greatest gift God ever gave to itself. Thus, relationship is the greatest gift God ever gave to you, a point to be discussed in detail later. From the no thing thus sprang the everything, a spiritual event entirely consistent, incidentally, with what your scientists call the Big Bang Theory. That's what I try to illustrate with the book by Mr. Lawrence Krauss. So that's what I could say about nothing. 1 hour and 7 minutes of talking about nothing. But the feeling that I have is that of melancholy, maybe. Kind of sadness, I don't know. But with my limited capabilities, I can only imagine a void, and which is, strictly speaking, not a void, because how I imagine things, it's an empty space, and space is a physical determination, etc. But that's my limited capabilities. I can imagine a void and an impulse emerging out of this void, and that's what I had to say.